G'day guys, Steve from Dirt Bike ADV here. I'm in the market for a new adventure bike, looking to get a bigger one. If you know the channel at all, I've sort of upgraded a standard Enduro 480 to be an ADV bike. Looking to do some longer trips, some interstate work, so I'm just looking to my options at the moment about just getting a bigger single, basically something around the 600, 650 cc's. But in the process of doing that, I went through my usual sort of checks and balances on which brand and which bike to buy. So I thought I'd just do a little video on it and just sort of have a chat about how I go about choosing a bike. Again, if you follow the channel, you know I've recently bought a Beta 390 and went through basically the same process with that. Now, just by the videos you can see I've dropped in here, these are all the bikes that my son and myself have owned over the last 7 years. My son started riding a little 150 and I started riding a little 230 7 years ago, and we've evolved from that through all the major brands, KTM, Huskies, the red Huskies, the white Huskies, the Hondas of course, and Betas and Shercos. So the major brands. Unfortunately I haven't had any experience with the Gas and the TMs, but certainly they sound like good bikes, but just don't have any personal experience. So when I chose the 390, I just went and had a look at what's on the market. I decided I wanted a bike that was pretty versatile. Now when I say versatile, I talk about what sort of riding you can do with it. So I divide riding into 7 different categories. Hard enduro, technical single trail, flowing single trail, fire trail or twin trail as the Americans call it, ultralight ADV, just your local ADV, so just state sort of wide sort of stuff where you're not travelling too far and not going on interstate highways, and then of course the interstate style ADV bikes or travel ADV bikes. So they're my 7 categories. So obviously before the 390 I had an X-Trainer and I decided that wasn't just versatile enough. Great in the hard Duro, really good in the technical single trail, still pretty good in the flowing single trail, but as soon as you got out on the fire trails, it was starting to show its weaknesses. It wasn't designed for that, and obviously as an ultralight ADV bike it wouldn't suit at all. So I went through the processes and decided I needed a mid-size 4-stroke because they can do the technical single trail. You're certainly not going to ride a mid-size 4-stroke in hard enduro. Some guys might, but not for me. Flowing single trail, fire trails and ultralight ADV. It'll do sort of 4 areas for me, being a 4-stroke. And even possibly some local ADV work, but probably without a screen and that sort of stuff, you're going to struggle a little bit, or certainly I will. So I had a look at the range of mid-size 4-strokes. Certainly I looked at the Sherco 300, the Husky and the KTM 350s. Husky have done a good job of keeping their brand a little bit different to KTM, I thought. So I've sort of quite different bikes when you spec them up. And I even had a look at the DRZ 400, SWM 300, and of course the Beta 390. Now the Beta 390 come out on top for the main reasons of the nice long stroking torquey motor. It just suited my style of riding, just made it a little bit easier to handle in the tight technical single trail. Didn't flame out or stall as much as the others, and I've owned KTM 350s before, but certainly a lot shorter stroking motors in those range, the 55 to 57 sort of stroke, whereas the Beta 390 is a 63. So that's how I chose the Beta. But yeah, I'm going through the same process now with an ADV bike. So currently I've got the 480. I've converted that into a really nice ADV bike now. It's got a screen, it's got a more comfortable seat, it's got a little rack on the back, it's got better headlights, somewhere to mount your phone. So it's sort of set up pretty well. But it's not the bike, I did say that in a review, it's not the bike you're going to ride to Alice Springs, across the Simpson and back via Broken Hill. It's just too many Ks of open roads and tarmac highways. Just not quite comfortable enough. The engine doesn't sort of lug along, and so you're going to be racking the Ks up and the oil changes up fairly quick. So here I am. I'm looking to get myself into a slightly bigger ADV bike without going to a big twin cylinder. So the thing with this bike is that I would like to have it so I can ride sort of flowing single trail, I guess you'd say. So the ultralight ADV work, local ADV work, and the interstate. So it wants to be up there in the CC. So it wants to be about a 600 or 650 cc's. So it needs to have a good power to weight ratio. Single cylinder, as I said, needs to have a flat seat style, so it needs to ride like a dirt bike. That's why I've named the channel Dirt Bike ADV. You've got to have a flat seat so you can move around on the bike and influence the bike when you're going up those snotty hills. And so no saddle seats for me. And I'm happy with a fuel range of around about the 300, 350. Doesn't have to have a huge tanks. And obviously the 18 to 21 inch wheel combination is pretty important as well too for a bit of off-road stuff. And obviously a little bonus, but most of the time you can get accessories. The bonus is wind protection. So yeah, so they're my main criteria. So when you look at the bikes on the market in recent times, so I'm talking a couple of bikes that are no longer in production here, but certainly worth considering. You can get pretty good examples of them second hand. So I looked at a range of bikes, the BMW Certeo 650, the Yami XT 660Z, the SWM Super Dual. All those bikes are more touring bikes, okay? They don't necessarily have 18 to 21 inch wheel combinations. They have saddle style seats and certainly sit a bit lower. And I've sort of sat on those bikes or rode those bikes and felt like I've sort of discounted those ones fairly well in the piece, and reasonably heavy too at that. Certainly the SWM Super Dual is a great bike. It's using the old Husqvarna 610, 630 engine, a super reliable and well-built engine, and they just come all specced up. So they were certainly given due consideration, but a little bit heavy, and as I say, that saddle style seat, not necessarily got dirt bike heritage. So on to there, I went to the DRZ 650. Not really going to criticise the DR650. There's that many people that are riding them around. They are a super reliable, super efficient bike, cost effective. They do a lot of things well. What they're not is very exciting, and they're quite heavy. I just can't see myself riding one, unfortunately. If I was a little bit older and was happy to lug along a little bit slower and that sort of stuff, I probably would be happy with one. But yeah, just a little bit of I guess a boring bike and a bike that doesn't look super sexy. So I've decided to delete that one as well. Onto there, there's a couple of others left now in the bigger single cylinders. AJB have got a Portuguese manufacturer, have got a fairly good option and really specs up nice. It looks like that dirt bike rally style bike. It looks really good. I'm really liking the look of that bike, and certainly it's not too heavy. It's got, again, the Husky 610, 630 engine in it, which is a pretty proven engine. Obviously, they've made some improvements. It's got some good suspension, good travel suspension, good brakes. It's got the seat under the tank. It specs up really nice. And then lastly, of course, you've got your Husky 701s and your KTM 690s. And obviously, they're a very up-to-date modern bike, and certainly a very, very good option. So I think it's basically come down to those two, or those three bikes, the AGP, the Husky 701 and the KTM 690. Now, I'm probably going to delete the Husky just on looks alone. I just prefer the looks of the 690, to be honest. No other reason. I can't see anything in the specs that really makes me want to swing either way. Not interested in the Husky Long Ranger. That's just too big a tanks for the amount of times you need long range. I don't like having those tanks. As I say, I'm happy with 300, 350k range. So I certainly wouldn't be getting the Long Ranger. But yeah, and there's a lot of white plastics on them. They're going to get pretty scuffed and pretty dirty looking. So I just actually prefer the look of the 690. So when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be for me either the AJP. I'm in Australia, so I'm going to have to ring the importer here. There's only one importer listed here, so I'll have a chat to him and see what sort of cost they are. And obviously I'll have a look at the 690 as well. Now, with the 690, there's one little thing that I don't like. The 19 and 21 models have a couple of good things and a couple of bad things. The 19 and 21 models have got the extra counterbalancer. Makes it a little bit smoother. Some people complain of vibration. I'm reserving my judgment on that. But on the downside, more electronics, lean sensitive ABS, front and rear ABS, traction control, a whole bunch of stuff to go wrong in my opinion. So I'm probably leaning to getting a pre-19 690 if I ended up going down that track. But that's sort of where I'm at the moment. The 690 KTM and the AJP 600 is probably my two preferred options. Now, with regard to the AJP, One of the beauties of that bike is it's set up very, very well. They've got they're sort of ready to go. It's got a tablet up on the handlebars. It's got a normal speedo. It's got a very good bash plate, handguards, and wind protection. All I'd probably do would be just put a rear rack on that bike, and it would be ready to go. Conversely, the KTM does require a bit of work. So if I bought an 18 KTM, I'd be probably putting a B&B rear rack and bash plate, some rally pegs, an aftermarket exhaust, and probably go with the Raid Garage fairing and auxiliary tank in the airbox, and that would get me in the range and the wind protection. So there you go. Now, just a little development. I have since rung the AJP importer. They have no bikes in Australia. They don't know when they're getting bikes in Australia. So I think the decision has been made for me. A KTM 690 is what I'll be looking for. So I'm in the market for an 18 model 690, and as I said, I'll be doing the accessories that I mentioned and building a bike. Obviously I'll do some videos on that, and I'm not a big fan of 2-hour videos on blokes fitting a headlight, but certainly I'll probably do it in a couple of stages where I fit a few of the things and get it up to speed and get the tyres I like and all that sort of stuff, and obviously do reviews on it and let people know for interest's sake whether they're interested in buying a 690, how I go with it. So yeah. Anyway, guys, that's how I choose a bike. So that's the processes I go through. I've been guilty of the grass is greener on the other side of the fence with buying dirt bikes over the last 7 years. But I just had to make sure I sat down and sort of sorted out what I was looking for in a bike. And once I sort of did that, I've sort of got a bit of a system going now. Now, you might notice that there was a T700 on the thumbnail. I didn't really give that a lot of thought. Once I looked at the weight, it was sort of well over what I would like to have in the way of a motorbike, and obviously it's a twin cylinder, but nonetheless getting a lot of rave reviews. But once I seen the weight, it was out of the question for me. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is my system. This is my thoughts. Have I missed a bike? Is there a bike I should have considered? How do you go about choosing a bike? And yeah, just love to hear your thoughts on this, because yeah, nothing's set in concrete. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Really appreciate your time, and we'll hope to see you out in the trail soon.